The US Marine Corps is vulnerable to Russia. Such a statement was made in the Senate in December last year by the commander of this elite type of troops, General Robert Neller. At the head of the Marines noted, the United States no longer exercises undeniable control over the oceans. Does America admit that Russia is stronger? Hello, Newsoldier in touch! Today we will talk about the Marines of Russia and the United States. Let's start! Marines of Russia. In terms of specifics and capabilities, the Russian Marines are close to the Special Forces. They are not as numerous as the US Marine Corps and are not a separate branch of the military, but included in the Navy. Military expert Dmitry Kornev, in an interview with RT, explained the importance of the Marines in the modern armed forces. In Soviet times, there was no clear understanding of the development of the Navy. First of all, the USSR was preparing for a major ground war in Europe. The Marines were assigned a secondary role for conducting operations at operational tactical depths in the interests of the Navy, as well as protecting bases and coastal zone facilities. The difference between the US Marine Corps and the Russian Marine Corps is primarily based on the difference in tactics. The US has offensive air-sea operations with the active use of land in fleet and aviation, while Russia builds tactics primarily on the defensive actions of ground forces. And what, in your opinion, is the importance of the Marine Corps in Russian armed forces? Leave your opinion in the comments below the video. The expert clarifies that attention to the Marines has increased in the context of the operation of the Russian armed forces in Syria. In Syria, the Marines successfully carry out tasks to protect the bases and facilities of the Russian armed forces. But to further increase the combat potential of the Marines, new landing ships, helicopter carriers and armored personnel carriers are needed, Kornev emphasized. According to him, now the Marine Corps is moving towards air mobility through the use of Ka-29TB helicopters. In the absence of specially designed infantry fighting vehicles or armored personnel carriers, modified BMP-3, BMD-4 and BTR-82A are used. However, ideally they need armored vehicles with the possibility of over-the-horizon landing, when equipment can be landed from ships at a distance of 40 to 60 kilometers, in order to then independently reach the coast, the military expert notes. A look at Russian Marines from the side of the Americans. At the same time, the same commander of the US Marine Corps, General Robert Neller, whom we mentioned at the very beginning, admits that even now the branch of the military subordinate to him is vulnerable to the latest Russian weapons. The result of the development or acquisition of high-precision long-range missiles by the main opponents and enemies of the United States, China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, as well as armed extremist organizations, many of our units deployed around the world have found themselves in the reach of their weapons. Marine units stationed at military bases abroad or in war zones are now vulnerable to missile attacks, the likelihood of which was not even considered in previous decades, the American military leader emphasizes. The US Marine Corps is a separate branch of the military along with the Army, Navy, Air Force and Coast Guard. It reports directly to the President of the United States and can be used abroad without congressional authorization. Numbering up to 200,000 people, the Corps plays the role of a rapid reaction force, and its military personnel carry out the main load of tasks for conducting operations outside the territory of the United States. Marines are considered the elite of the US military. It is they who guard the President and diplomatic missions of the United States around the world. The US Navy and Marine Corps can no longer rely on concepts and those forces and means that are based on the idea of undeniable control over the seas, says Neller. Do you agree or disagree with him? Leave your opinion in the comments below the video. According to Neller, the Marine Corps must become more flexible, deadly and capable of deterring the enemy. In addition, it is necessary to strengthen the marine bases abroad and improve air defense systems. The US has dominance at sea, but in some areas it is possible to strike against individual ship formations, and it is possible to strike at the base of the Marines. And the air defense system of these bases apparently is not sufficiently developed. Military expert Captain First Rank Reserve Konstantin Sivkov said in an interview with RT. According to Vladimir Batyuk, head of the Center for Military Political Studies of the Institute for the US and Canadian Studies of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Neller's statement is true. The expert notes that according to the previously approved national security strategy and the US national defense strategy, it is Russia that is singled out as one of the main threats to the United States. These documents indicate that not all parts of the world ocean are currently fully controlled by the American armed forces. Control over some areas may be contested from the US armed forces by their leading military and political opponents. In relation to Russia, this is the water area of the Baltic and Black Seas, Batyuk notes. This is not the first time US Marine Corps Commander Robert Neller has spoken of Russia. So on December 24, 2017, at the base of the Marines in Norway, he called on the audience to prepare for war with Russia. "I hope I'm wrong, but the war is coming," quotes the commander of the US Marine Corps Fox News. Asked by an ordinary infantryman where he would have to fight in the future, Neller said that most likely it would not be the Middle East. "The main attention will be paid to the Pacific Ocean and Russia," added the commander. Is he right? How do you think? Leave your comments below the video. In turn, Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps Ronald Green said that 300 American infantrymen in Norway served the purpose of containing Russia. At the same time as Robert Neller, at the beginning of this year, other senior US military official announced a change in the global balance of power. Thus, US Secretary of the Navy Richard Spencer, speaking with the commander of the Marine Corps in Senate, emphasized that the Navy and the Marine Corps have joined in a race unprecedented in the past 20 years. On the same day, United States Secretary of Defense James Mattis, speaking before the lower house of the US Congress, announced the erosion of American military superiority in the face of Russia. "Our advantage is undermined in every area of warfare – in the air, on land, at sea, in space and in cyberspace," Mattis said. Earlier, US Deputy Secretary of Defense John Root stated that he was not ready to confront the Russian strategic forces. According to the head of the Bureau of Military Political Analysis, Alexander Mikhailov, it is not only the presence of high-precision weapons in Russia. On the one hand, the combat effectiveness of any army is affected by the presence of modern weapons. On the other hand, the training of fighters, competence, coherence and the ability to use these weapons on the battlefield. Now the most combat-ready army on the planet is the Russian one. And this applies not only to Russian Marines and the army as a whole. According to Mikhailov, the superiority of the United States is primarily in absolute terms, allocated funds and the number of ships. But although they have dozens of aircraft carriers and missile cruisers, it is impossible to fulfill the voluminous tasks that the Pentagon is trying to impose on itself, to take control of all the oceans of the planet and have their own military bases everywhere, Mikhailov emphasized. And even US Marine Corps Captain Joshua Waddell, in an article for the Marine Corps Gazette, criticized Washington's defense policy and noted that the Russian army achieves great success on a smaller budget. According to the captain, the United States considers its army the most combat-ready in the world only because of the huge defense spending, but a large budget does not guarantee military success. Waddell notes that Russia, despite spending less on defense, has managed to embarrass the US in Syria, and this is the Russian army, which according to the RAND Corporation, will be impossible to stop at the initial stage of the conflict in the Baltics, even by all the NATO forces that are there. Of course, if the United States adopts new systems and starts developing them, then there is no doubt that Russia will also take measures to neutralize the American threat, Batyuk says. According to experts, the Russian Marine Corps is a serious opponent to the US Marines, and the further the more. After all, if the Americans try to significantly increase their weapons, then Moscow will not stand aside either. And then you need to turn on the brains of the powerful of this world. That's all. As always, we are waiting for your comments under the video, likes and suggestions for new topics. See you on the channel, friends! Narrated by Maxim Nikulin for Newsoldier channel.